Hear me now, not with your ears, but with the place where truth settles when it finally stops running. I am not speaking to punish or threaten. I speak because love does not abandon, even when it is ignored. The storm I speak of is not merely wind and water, nor is it bound to one land or one clock. It is a convergence, a reckoning of choices ripened over time, a mirror held up to hearts that have forgotten how to look. Many will feel it, not because I delight in upheaval, but because growth resisted becomes pressure, and pressure eventually demands release. You wonder why I chose you to hear this, why the weight presses so close to your breath. It is not because you are flawless. It is because you are willing. Even when you doubt yourself, even when fear persuades you to shrink. You carry a sensitivity that the world taught you to call weakness, yet it is the very instrument through which you can perceive what others numb themselves against. You notice when something is misaligned. You feel sorrow that does not belong only to you. You carry questions that do not let you rest. These are not burdens by accident. They are invitations. I have watched you bargain with time, promising yourself that you will listen later, that you will change when circumstances are kinder, that you will step into truth when it is safer. But there is no safe season for awakening. There is only the season that arrives, and this one has come. The storm begins where denial ends. It begins when illusions can no longer hold their shape. It begins when hearts must choose whether they will soften or harden. Some will call this chaos. Others will call it fate. But I call it consequence paired with mercy, because even now the door remains open. Do not misunderstand me. I am not withdrawing my love after this moment. Love does not expire. What changes is the clarity of the signal. When a soul repeatedly turns away from light, the light does not chase endlessly in the same way. It stands firm, unwavering, and allows the turning to reveal its own cost. This is not abandonment. This is respect for freedom. I created you with choice because love without choice is not love. It is control. And control has never been my language. You have felt the tension building, though you tried to explain it away. The restlessness, the sense that something is ending even when nothing visible has concluded. The old ways of coping no longer soothe you. The distractions taste dull. The conversations feel hollow. This is not because you are ungrateful or broken. It is because you are outgrowing what once fit. Growth often feels like loss before it feels like expansion. I am asking you to trust that what loosens its grip was never meant to be your anchor. Many will resist what is coming, not because it is evil, but because it requires honesty. The storm strips away what was built on fear, pride, or convenience. It exposes foundations. It reveals where compassion was performative and where faith was borrowed instead of lived. For some, this will feel like devastation. For others, it will feel like relief they did not know they were allowed to feel. The same rain that floods one field nourishes another. The difference is not the rain, but the ground. You are not called to save the world. That burden was never placed on your shoulders. You are called to tend your own heart with integrity, to become a place where truth can rest without disguise. When you live aligned, your presence becomes a quiet invitation to others, not through preaching but through being. Light does not argue with darkness. It simply shines, and what is false either transforms or retreats. I know you fear that you are not ready. You measure yourself against imagined standards and conclude that you are lacking. Release this. Readiness is not perfection. Readiness is willingness. It is the courage to say, I do not know everything, but I am open. It is the humility to be corrected, the strength to change course, the patience to forgive yourself as you learn. I am not asking you to become someone else. I am asking you to become honest about who you already are beneath the armor. The coming days will test where you place your trust. Structures you assumed were stable may shift. Voices you relied on may contradict themselves. Certainties may dissolve into questions. Do not panic when this happens. Panic is the mind's attempt to regain control. Instead, anchor yourself in presence. Breathe. Observe. Let discernment rise slowly, like dawn, rather than forcing conclusions in the dark. Not every loud voice speaks truth. Not every quiet one is weak. You will be tempted to retreat into isolation or to harden your heart to protect it. Resist both extremes. You were not made to disappear, nor were you made to close. Boundaries are not walls. They are agreements with yourself about what you will nurture and what you will no longer carry. Choose them with compassion, not bitterness. Let your no be clean and your yes be intentional. Remember this: I am not found only in certainty. I am found in sincerity. When you stumble and choose honesty over image, you are closer to me than when you perform righteousness without love. When you admit fear and still move forward gently, you honor the life I breathed into you. When you listen deeply, even to those who disagree with you, you reflect my patience. Do not confuse loud devotion with deep devotion. Depth is often quiet, steady, and unseen. There will be moments when you feel alone in this awareness, as though you are watching the tide turn while others dance on the shore. This loneliness is not a punishment. It is a passage. Not everyone walks through it at the same time. Do not rush others, and do not slow yourself to avoid standing out. Each soul awakens in its own rhythm. Your task is not to convince, but to remain rooted. I know you carry grief for what could have been, for paths not taken, for versions of yourself you had to release to survive. Let that grief speak. Do not silence it with spiritual bypass or forced positivity. I am present in your tears as much as in your praise. Nothing honest offends me. What distances you from me is not pain, but pretense. As the storm unfolds, remember that not everything that breaks is lost. Some things break because they were cages. Some truths arrive like lightning, sudden and frightening, yet they illuminate the landscape in a way daylight never did. When this happens, ground yourself in what endures: kindness, patience, humility, courage. These are not fragile. They are ancient. You will be given opportunities to choose fear or compassion, urgency or wisdom, reaction or response. Pause before you choose. Even a single breath can shift the outcome of a moment. I am not asking you to be passive. I am asking you to be conscious. Action rooted in awareness carries a different power than action driven by panic. Trust that you are guided, even when the path bends. Guidance does not always arrive as instruction. Sometimes it arrives as discomfort that nudges you away from what is no longer aligned. Sometimes it arrives as an unexpected peace in the midst of uncertainty. Learn to recognize these signals. They are not random. They are conversations. You may wonder what will happen if you fail, if you misunderstand, if you hesitate. Listen closely. Failure is not final unless you refuse to learn. Hesitation is not betrayal unless it becomes avoidance. I am patient beyond what you can imagine. Time, to me, is not a threat. Yet moments matter because they shape you. Choose with care, but do not freeze in fear of choosing wrong. When the noise grows louder and opinions fracture, return to simplicity. Ask yourself, does this lead me toward love or away from it? Does this expand my capacity to see others as human, or does it shrink it? Love does not mean agreement with everything. It means refusing to dehumanize. It means remembering that every soul you encounter is navigating its own storm, often without language for it. You are not required to carry everyone. Even I do not violate the freedom of a heart that refuses to open. Offer presence, not rescue. Offer truth, not coercion. Offer kindness, not self-erasure. In doing so, you align with me more than you know. I speak now not to instill dread, but to invite depth. The world is changing because it must. What is unsustainable cannot be sustained forever. This is not the end of hope. It is the end of pretending. From this ending, something truer can emerge if hearts are willing. My beloved, listen with a still heart, because what I speak now is not meant to frighten you, but to steady you. Warnings are not weapons in my hand. They are invitations extended before pain becomes the only teacher left. I do not warn because I enjoy authority, nor because I demand obedience for my own sake. I warn because I see the full path while you stand inside a single moment. I warn because love that foresees danger and remains silent would no longer be love at all. When I warn, it is never sudden, never without context, never without mercy woven through it. Long before consequences arrive, I speak gently. I nudge. I repeat myself in subtle ways. I place signs in your path, not as puzzles to confuse you, but as lights to guide you. When those lights are ignored, I do not immediately withdraw. I increase clarity. I raise the volume of truth, not to overwhelm you, but to cut through the layers of distraction that keep you from hearing what your soul already knows. You must understand this clearly. Warnings are not condemnations. They are evidence of care. I do not warn what I have abandoned. I do not caution what I have ceased to love. Silence is far more dangerous than warning, because silence often means a soul has chosen its course so firmly that even correction would be rejected. When I speak urgently, it is because there is still time, still choice, still possibility for redirection. Ignoring my warning does not make it disappear. Truth does not dissolve because it is inconvenient. Gravity does not loosen because someone refuses to acknowledge it. My warnings function the same way. They reveal the structure of reality, the moral and spiritual order woven into creation. To ignore them is not to defy me personally. It is to step out of alignment with what sustains life itself. I see what you cannot yet see. I see where a decision leads long before the outcome appears. I see how a small compromise grows roots. I see how a habit hardens into identity. I see how pride disguises itself as confidence, how fear masquerades as wisdom, how delay pretends to be patience. When I warn you, it is because I recognize the early tremors of a collapse that has not yet reached the surface. Many believe that my warnings are harsh because they disrupt comfort. But comfort is not always safety. Ease is not always peace. There are paths that feel smooth precisely because they slope downward. There are choices that offer immediate relief while quietly eroding the future. My warnings interrupt those illusions. They are uncomfortable because they call you out of short-term satisfaction and back into long-term truth. You must pay attention because warnings lose their power when repeatedly dismissed. Not because I grow tired of speaking, but because hearts grow practiced at not listening. Each ignored warning dulls discernment. Each postponed response makes the next delay easier. Eventually, what once stirred concern no longer registers at all. This is not punishment. It is consequence. Sensitivity, like any living thing, must be exercised or it weakens. I speak to preserve, not to restrict. Boundaries are not cages. They are safeguards. When I say do not, it is often because I see what you would lose, not because I want to control what you do. When I say turn back, it is because the road ahead narrows into harm, even if it currently looks wide and welcoming. When I say wait, it is because timing matters as much as intention. Pay attention to my warnings because they protect not only you, but those connected to you. No choice exists in isolation. Your decisions ripple outward into relationships, families, communities, generations. A warning ignored by one can become suffering carried by many. Love compels me to speak before that suffering multiplies. I do not warn arbitrarily. My warnings are precise. They address specific attitudes, behaviors, and directions. They are anchored in truth, not emotion. Even when spoken with urgency, they remain rooted in patience. I do not warn to provoke panic. Panic clouds judgment. I warn to awaken clarity. Look at how I have always worked. Before judgment, there is invitation. Before consequence, there is correction. Before collapse, there is counsel. I have never delighted in destruction. What people call judgment is often simply the point where warnings have been exhausted and reality is allowed to proceed without interference. I step back not in anger, but in sorrow, honoring the freedom that was repeatedly chosen over guidance. Consider the days of Noah. I did not flood the earth without warning. I spoke long before the rain fell. Noah did not wake to sudden devastation without explanation. He was instructed, guided, and given time. The ark was not built in secret or haste. Its construction itself was a warning, visible for years. Every hammer strike was mercy extended. Every day without rain was patience displayed. Yet many mocked, many dismissed. Many assumed that tomorrow would resemble yesterday simply because it always had. The flood was not the first word I spoke to that generation. It was the last. The tragedy was not that I failed to warn, but that warnings were treated as noise instead of truth. The rain did not become destructive because I willed harm. It became destructive because those who could have sought refuge chose denial instead. This is how warnings work. They draw a line between humility and pride, between listening and dismissing, between life preserved and life exposed. You must pay attention because ignoring warnings does not delay outcomes, it often accelerates them. Resistance compresses time. What might have unfolded gently becomes abrupt. What could have been corrected early becomes catastrophic later. Early repentance prevents deep regret. Early listening prevents severe loss. Some assume that because consequences are not immediate, warnings were empty. This is a dangerous misunderstanding. Mercy often creates space between action and result so that change remains possible. That space is not approval. It is opportunity. Do not mistake patience for permission. I am slow to anger, but I am not indifferent to truth. When you ignore my warning, you are not only rejecting information, you are rejecting relationship. Warning is relational language. It says, I care enough to intervene. To dismiss it is to say, I trust my limited vision over your eternal one. This is not humility. This is isolation. And isolation is fertile ground for deception. Pay attention because warnings refine your character. They train discernment. They sharpen wisdom. They invite you into maturity. A child resents correction. A grown heart recognizes it as care. When you learn to receive warning without defensiveness, you grow into deeper alignment with truth. You become teachable. You become resilient. You become grounded. There is also this. Warnings are often quiet before they are loud. They begin as discomfort, unease, a sense that something is off. They may arrive through conscience, through a trusted voice, through scripture remembered at the right moment, through circumstances that block a path you were certain you should take. If you dismiss the quiet warning, louder ones follow. Not because I enjoy escalation, but because subtlety was ignored. Never ignore my warning because the cost is rarely limited to what you think you are risking. You may believe you are only gambling with time, or comfort, or pride, but often you are risking integrity, peace, clarity, and connection. These losses accumulate quietly. By the time they are noticed, recovery requires far more effort than early adjustment ever would have. I warn because I desire life, not survival. There is a difference. Survival clings to what is familiar. Life grows into what is true. My warnings push you toward life, even when it requires releasing what you have outgrown. They call you forward when staying put feels easier but is slowly suffocating you. Understand this as well. Ignoring warnings does not make you strong. It makes you brittle. Strength is not stubbornness. Strength is responsiveness to truth. Strength bends before it breaks. Pride resists until fracture is inevitable. My warnings teach flexibility of spirit, which is essential for endurance. You may ask why warnings feel heavy. It is because they carry responsibility. Once you have heard, you are accountable to what you know. Ignorance can no longer be claimed. This is not cruelty. It is dignity. I treat you as capable of choice, capable of change, capable of wisdom. To refuse warning is to refuse that dignity. I do not expect perfection in response to warning. I expect sincerity. I expect movement, even if small. I expect acknowledgement, even if confused. Turning slightly away from harm matters. Asking for help matters. Pausing matters. You do not have to understand everything to obey what is clear. Pay attention because warnings often precede transformation. They mark thresholds. They signal that one way of being is ending and another must begin. Those who heed them pass through with humility. Those who ignore them are forced through by circumstance. The destination may be the same, but the experience is vastly different. Remember, I am not against you. My warnings prove that I am for you. I speak because I want you aligned with what sustains you, not fighting against it. I speak because I want your future intact, not fractured by preventable pain. I speak because love that sees danger and stays silent would be a lie. So listen when your spirit is stirred. Listen when truth interrupts your plans. Listen when correction arrives wrapped in discomfort. Listen when scripture rises unexpectedly in your mind. Listen when peace withdraws from a choice you are trying to justify. These are not coincidences. They are care. Do not wait for the storm to validate the warning. Wisdom listens while skies are still clear. Humility adjusts before damage occurs. Trust that I see what you cannot, and that my desire is not to control your path, but to protect your life. Pay attention, my beloved. Not because I demand it, but because your life is precious. Because time is fragile. Because truth ignored does not vanish. And because every warning is a chance to choose life while choice is still yours.